second session. My name's Tori. I'm like a newer member of Philly Thrive, but really honored to get to be part of gathering people here. I think I would love to just like go around and introduce speakers and have you all just like your name, the organization that you're working with, and if there's anything else that you like want to get out there right off the bat. And then I'll talk a little bit about like how we're gonna spend our time.
Well, hi everybody, my name is Mika. Can y'all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Mika Outlaw. Mika Outlaw. I am a long-term resident. I grew up in the Kings Village section of Grace Ferry. I have an organization that I work with. I'm the president and founder of ROAD, which stands for Residents Organized for Advocacy and Direction. I'm also one of the few RCOs that are in Grace Ferry, and the RCO is a registered community organization, which we come into play when a developer wants to come and build, but they don't want to build by right. They want to do a variance to what they want to build. So it's my organization, it's Philly Thrive, it's Grace Ferry Community Council, and it's Tasker Morris Neighbors Association. They are all of the RCOs that represent Grace Ferry. The RCOs really don't have any teeth. They come out, the community is supposed to come out, hear from the developer, and then the community decides whether they want this to move forward or not. And if the community says no, then the RCOs will write a letter of no support. If the community says yes, they write a letter of support. What usually happens is you go down to zoning, and sometimes there's been instances where the community has said, no, we don't want this, and the ZBA says, well, we think you do, and they give it to you anyway. I was also the former net coordinator that covered Grace Ferry and Point Breeze under what used to be Diversified Community Services, and the net coordinator, what that job entailed was helping people. It's a twofold thing. It was helping people who were either behind in their real estate taxes or their mortgages to let them know what free help was available to them from the city in order to save their homes. And it was also to connect people to different resources. One of the things that we found, and I'm passing it on, is there's a website called atlas.phila.gov. On that website, you can find out whatever you want about somebody's house. You can find out who their mortgage is through, when they got the mortgage, how many times their mortgage has been moved, how many times the mortgage has been changed. Now, in theory, that's great unless you are a developer that is really trying to hurt a person. And I'll give y'all one quick story. There was an elderly woman who was on my list of people that I had to go see because she had fell behind on her mortgage. So her house was about to go into foreclosure. She had to go to court. I came to her house to let her know what free help was available to her, and she said, no, my mortgage is paid off. And I was like, well, ma'am,
We have undertaken many actions, but most notably, our 31-day protest encampment in July of 2022. From this has emerged an awareness of our particular situation, which in turn has served as a jumping-off point for a growing awareness of and collective resistance to the destructive takeover by corporate developers from West Philly to Chinatown. Stakeholders with whom we've negotiated and had to contend with include Drexel University and UPenn, the city and its housing and zoning legislation, the private relocation company Triad, PHA, and HUD at the local and national levels. In many instances, they have consistently withheld information from us. They have made decisions about our lives and our future in this place without engaging us. This has been at the heart of the difficulties we've faced as we've tried to move forward. Yes, this has been at the heart of the difficulties we've faced as we've tried to move forward as a community. Our allies including Penn Medicine, who see housing as a healthcare issue, some faith-based organizations, developers like Preservation for Affordable Housing, who have experience in developing without displacement, architectural designers invested in tenant-driven and family-centered design. Check.
Here we go. Many of our neighbors, including myself and my family, have been forced to move out, leaving more and more boarded up units. And I'm going to drift a little bit from this because there are several consequences to boarded up units. One of them is the amplification of the idea that this is indicative of a blighted community. And while there is some merit to that interpretation, what happens is that that merit is overblown. And the more displacement you have, is the more the units are boarded up and the more blighted the community seems. And without the information as to what is happening and where this process is going, the community is able to speak with less and less authority because we don't have facts at our fingertips. And speaking without that commonly accepted authority based on facts affects our heft, it affects our legitimacy. And when we go up against these forces that are well versed in the diplo speak and the policy speak, because they themselves or people they have employed or people over whom they exert influence are the one that write these rules and policies that are shifting goalposts when they don't work in their favor. These are the kinds of follow-on effects that happen that begins with one boarded up door. Our fight, has shifted from an expectation of the preservation of the entire property to a fraction of it as a result of the reported components of a settlement between the owner and the city of Philadelphia. We are fighting to preserve what community we have left. This means making the city accountable for keeping a subsidy on the site, to ensure permanent affordability at 30% area median income or lower. This means giving residents a right to return after any redevelopment occurs. And this means giving residents a deciding voice in who gets to redevelop and administer the homes. From the beginning of this campaign, I've tried to contextualize the reason for our fight as I understand it. That the south, at the northwest corner of the block that the town home sits on is a major stop of a major line in a major city. At least 2 generations, at least for two generations, this is the entirety of their lived experience. I step out of my house and I get to the subway in 5 minutes. That allows for the realization of the potential of less enfranchised persons in more ways than you can imagine. I came here from Jamaica in 2009 and I had to factor the importance of spending every token. And And I came here with a first degree, with some technical expertise in an area that has nothing to do with my first degree, with some experience of having come here as a child during the summer. And I say this because my own experience is one where I started off on second base. Can you imagine the folks who are just stepping out of the dugout, who have this jumping off point to realize their potential being taken away from them with no concern as to where they go next? That is my reason for this fight. You say that we need to pull our socks up. Let us keep the socks we have to start with. Don't take it away from us. Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Michelle Crouch. I'm here with the Philadelphia Rent Control Coalition. And our purpose is to try and get a citywide law passed that puts a limit on how much landlords can increase rent on their tenants year to year. And I'm gonna leave it pretty brief for right now, but I would love to just hear what people have questions about. And I am happy to talk about, you know, obviously that affects renters. That affects renters not getting pushed out of their home, but it also affects people who are looking for housing. Like, you know, I'm sure if when you were looking to find a place, I'm very sorry to hear that what's going on at townhomes, and I know a lot of people there were looking for new places to live, and whether you're self-pay or if you're on Section 8, if you have a voucher, vouchers only cover a certain amount. So when rents get too high, that affects subsidized tenants, self-pay tenants, and I can also talk about how it can affect these questions of like investment and investors and quote unquote mom and pop landlords or smaller landlords who are local versus large corporate out of city, out of state landlords, and how all those things might come together. And we hope could really keep money in the communities, keep people from having to move. You know, when a site suddenly that wasn't desirable for many years becomes desirable because, oh look, it's next to 40th Street Station. How we can keep people from being pushed out because someone has decided their community is suddenly desirable when it wasn't for a long time. So I'll keep it at that for now.
Thank you, Michelle. My name is Nancy Churchville, and I am secretary of an organization called NWCLT, Northwest Community Land Trust. And I'm going to deflect to my husband, who is the president and CEO of the community.
Excuse me, before you go, we just like to put some more on this table.
Okay.
Can we turn on the output so it doesn't even... All right, disconnect it. Hold the mic. Do you have any flex on the box itself? Can we break it when I touch? Yeah, it's all right. Yep. That'll do. Sorry, folks. Trying to make a little more so to this so that.
Thank you.
All right.
Check on two.
Thank you. And we appreciate the skills you have just demonstrated. I'm John Churchville, and let me just, my wife told you where I'm from. Let me tell you what my interest is in this gathering today, and what my interest is. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
What I'm concerned about, what NWCLT is concerned about, is not just doing low-income housing. We're going to do that. We're going to do all kinds of things. What we want to see is connecting with people like Philly Thrive, like, and it may sound like it's kind of off the beam, but I want to talk about what's happening in Chinatown. I have friends in Chinatown. I have connections in Chinatown. I am hurt that that community has been split apart, literally.
Yes, yes.
And that, well, let me just get it off my chest. What really bothers me is, you guys saw the Inquirer a couple of weeks ago, where the Sixers trotted out a group of black preachers. Now Chinatown says, we don't want it. And these guys were trotted out to say, it'll be good for black jobs, which is the old separation. I want to implore everyone that this is a time when we have to support everybody, everywhere. Who has, it's the same fight, it's the same struggle. So if you should happen to read an article in the Inquirer one day, where I was not as nice as I could be, or as I am today, and where I said some terrible things which were all the truth about some people who shouldn't have done what they did, forgive me.
Okay, my name is Michael, full name is Michael Rapp. I'm the housing supervisor for the housing department at Greater Philadelphia Community Alliance. You may really know us better as Diversified Community Services and or United Community Southeast Philadelphia. We merged last January, we officially merged to really help all the residents of South Philly in all 4 zip codes, 4-5, 4-6, 4-7, 4-8.
Towards you.
All right. I'm not always a huge fan of microphones either, so I usually just try and yell pretty loud. So what my organization does, we have our hands in a fair amount of activities. So we do family case management, we do truancy case management, we have after-school programs for just about every grade level. We have early childhood education facilities locally. My department, like I said, I work for the housing department. We do mortgage foreclosure prevention. We do diversion court to help the folks that are up in court. We do rental counseling. We do rental diversion counseling. We do first-time home buyer counseling. Basically, if it's a housing issue, either myself or one of my staff have their hand in the pot. We're really just trying to help folks. And I apologize, we also have a benefits access center, which tries to help, it's basically a one-stop shop that folks can come in, get screened, see if they qualify for any utility programs, and or if there's other programs on top, like public assistance programs that they may not qualify for. And we just try and help them along that process, get folks connected. So, like I said, we're there basically trying to help everybody however we can. We try and be as holistic as possible, try and prevent folks from having to leave their houses. If we can help them get current on rent, always great. If we can help them get current or stay in their home with a mortgage, that's even better. I would say, one thing that I will say, there's 2 things. AMI is a joke. In reality, AMI is a joke. First, you have to realize what AMI is. It's area median income. That is not just Philadelphia. That is not just South Philadelphia. That is not just Northwest. That is Cherry Hill. That's Philadelphia, Bucks County, Delaware. If you look at AMI, it's incredibly high. So 30% of AMI is not 30% of area median income for Philadelphia County. Philadelphia County is much, 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 much lower than that region. I'll leave it at that, because that's really one of the big things that for years I've always heard people say AMI is like the rule of law. AMI is honestly a joke. It sets the bar much higher than what the average person needs.
Are you guys gonna talk?
I was gonna say.
Let's flip the chair.
Please.
Every time we'll get up and we'll just go okay. Hi everyone, my name is Jamaica Reese Julian. I am a graduate student in architecture and city planning at UPenn, and also help found a student-run organization called Penn Housing for All. We've been doing some research for Philly Thrive about Grace Ferry and the development changes that have been happening over the past 10 years, and looking at the number of new permits that have come into the city or the neighborhood and how that impacts market pressures within this kind of local community. Also, just going off what you said about AMI, for instance, an AMI, area median income for a single person in Philadelphia, as calculated by HUD, is $73,800. Grace Ferry's median income is $28,700. Yeah. I'll pass one.
Hey everybody, really happy to be here with you all, and thank you for coming. Yeah! My name is Jackson Plumley. I'm also a student at University of Pennsylvania in landscape architecture and city planning. And yeah, I've been working with Jamaica on this research for Philly Thrive. I'm also a volunteer member of Philly Thrive for a few years, and I'll keep it brief. Yeah, I don't think we have the lived experience or like the studied expertise and disciplinary knowledge that all these folks have, but we can try to hopefully sprinkle in some data and background and contextualize some of those things. So I think, will I pass it to Miss Carol now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Excuse me for coughing, but my asthma, when I get over here, sometimes my asthma start acting up real bad. Well, I lived in Tasker Homes since, well, I used to come out there in the 60s, around 60 years, come out there to visit my half-sister mom, and of course, where I'm at now. And I'm right on Cordy Street, I'm right like an inch away from the Refinery. At that time, when they start building old Tasker Homes up, you could see the big ball, stuff like that. You can see the big ball like that there. And my thing is about gentrification. I know about 40th Market too, how the people at 40th Market started building homes. I remember when they first built the house, back in the late 60s or 70s, when they started building that house on 40th Market. Then all of a sudden one morning, it all really started when Tasker Homes built the house. When I was in Old Tasker, which is now called Greater Respiration State, at that time they promised all of us that was in Tasker Homes that we all would come back to PHA. But they didn't let us come back in. What they did was they made all us full applications. If your application didn't come to that standard, you want to come back. I came with a friend of mine, girl named, she passed away now. And she said, Carol, can you come with me, go help me fill out my application? I said, for what? She said, for Tasker, they called, I said, they didn't call me back. So when I got there, lady named Jennifer, I said to her, I'm an old resident of Tasker Homes. And I started to volunteer in the senior citizen at that time. That was in 2003, because we came back in 2004. And she said, sure, you can fill out an application. I came back from my girlfriend did. I came back for you. You know old saying they say, when you go on a job interview, don't take your friends with you. I get that job first, but that's what happened to her. I came back first. But she did come back a year later after I did. I put the, and they asked for proof of income. They did a background check, a criminal check. They did a finance check, make sure you were able to pay rent. Like they did. So when they built them houses, then later on, all of a sudden developing for gentrification, they start coming through and they start pushing people out their homes. Now they had houses You know how the house be 3-story tall? My house is 3-story tall, and I had 4 bedrooms, 2.5 baths. Now the house is 5-story tall with a deck on top. So you count the bed. We don't have no basement. I don't have no basement. So when you start counting these basements, it's like 4-story tall. So what they did, they came in here and start pushing people out. We can't afford to pay the rent. My best friend, her rent is $800, almost $900 a month. Mine is like $7. We can't afford to pay no $2,000 for rent. That's impossible for $2,000. And they moving all the people out. They move out. And where I thought they was coming, I thought they was coming from the suburbs. I was not from my daughter, because my daughter lives in Delaware County. And she said, no, Molly, they're not coming from Delaware County or the suburbs. They come from Jersey. And the reason why they come from Jersey, because you know, that where I live at, we close to town. Only thing you gotta do is walk down Grace Ferry. No, I'm gonna go back a little bit. At that time, I lived on 15th Street, which is the side hill. I lived 15th and Montrose right there. So only they do, I went maybe like 5 blocks from Market Street. So when they realized that we was close to Market Street, they said, hey, you know what? We're gonna start building houses. And now they building houses next to the people that own their homes. There's some people don't want to sell their home, ain't gonna sell their home like this. So you got a little 3-story house inside a 5-story house between little houses together like they did, because nobody don't want to sell their homes like they did. So right now we're fighting for gentrification. We're fighting to keep people placed. We're fighting for them to stay in their neighborhood, not be pushed out their neighborhood. Because you know, when you come to your neighborhood, you've been here for over 50, 60, 70 years, so like this. You want to stay in your neighborhood, like a friend of mine named Jeanette. She on right now, she in the house, but she been here since she was born here in Southwood. She been here over 60-some years in her neighborhood, like they did. So now they trying to push houses, push people out. And back then, in the late 60s, people kept their houses up, kept them looking nice and stuff like that. Now people start interested in taking care of their houses, they get in front. So now the development came in, they said, hey, we want these houses for other people. They don't care, doctors, lawyers, students, I want the house or for. You know, it's a shame how they try to push people out. I'm like, 40th Market, those people been there forever. Some people that moved down, they were young when they moved. When they moved into their place, they were like in their 30s and 40 years old. And then they back in their 60s and 70s years old. And now all of a sudden, at the day, they want what? And you know why they want to move them out? Because that's a big place. They could take their house and make it to townhomes. Like townhomes, you know, I'm talking about penthouses. Turn them into penthouse. They could take them houses and turn them into penthouse. That's why we got to be on our game. We got to step our game up and keep working together as a community, as we were saying. We're not gonna let them come take over. It's all right there. Don't get me wrong. It's all right for them moving in the area. Ain't nothing wrong with it. We walking in the area, but don't try to take over all the house, all the house. Like some of the seniors, they offer them money for their house. $65,000 ain't no money. You know what? I can spend that I can spend that in like 3 months' time. $65, you know, by the time I start buying shoes, my best friend, I give her something for her. Right? That ain't no money. I done spent it. Only way it would last me, only way that money would last me, I have a daughter that's tight. She not have money. She can make a dime, she turn a dime, she can take a penny and make it turn into another penny. That's how she can handle that money. She can make that money last for 10, 15 years. Not me. I couldn't do that. And my thing is, we have to stick together in our community. It's like I said, it's all right. Everybody coming, everybody are welcome. But when they try to make the rent high, you can move people today. Make the rent at least be $800, because you know the rent gonna be there. Don't charge $2,000, $3,000. We can't afford that. We cannot afford that. And we don't have nowhere to go. You push us out. I remember back in the 70s, everybody moved out of Philadelphia because of the smog, the pollution, and everybody wanted to go to the suburb where it was cleaner. Now they realize too, they want to come back because their job is more close. Their job is in town. They got catch no train to come here to Philadelphia. They could just say, you know what, my job right now is in Market Street. All that I gotta do is just go ahead and get my car or get on the bus like that. So now you know. People are coming. And my thing is, we fight for gentrification. We have to stick together. We have to stay on point that nobody come in here and take our neighborhood. And I feel sorry for Chinatown, because Chinatown been there forever. Ever. That way everybody should go down Chinatown to get food and stuff like that. When they say they take over China, I said Chinatown, not Chinatown. I said I couldn't believe they would take over Chinatown. That I seen people came to the Democracy March. And my thing is, we have to stick together. And thank you for letting me share.
Thank you so much, Ms. Carroll. Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you, Jeff. I know that we're a little bit short on time. We're gonna go until like 12:15 or so. I'm just sort of just pushing the schedule back a little bit. I'd love to spend just like a couple of minutes on this first question because it's mostly focused on like what the issues are, and I think that we've heard a lot of that, and I started hearing a lot of that already. And I want to make sure that we also have time to talk about potential solutions and different options for communities. But I'm wondering if any of the speakers have anything that they want to add to what they've said in terms of significant factors decreasing community ownership over land in Southwest. Yeah, absolutely. I don't need to read the whole thing.
So one of the things that I wanted to say is, I'm gonna tell y'all a scary story. And it brings to mind what Alec Baldwin says, I can't believe what you say because I see what you do. So years ago, before I'm in my 40s, so I'm talking about my mother's friends. So my mom would be in her 70s now, they were kids. There was a whole nother neighborhood over there on Grace Ferry where the McDonald's and stuff is.
Yes, I know that.
Now, if you're my age, you wouldn't know that. Now, as the story goes like this. There was a whole neighborhood over there. The city wanted it. So what they did was they went to those neighbors over there and said, hey, we're gonna fix up your houses, but you need to sign this paper. And then once you sign this paper, we'll fix your house and then you'll be able to move back into that house. The story goes further, people signed it, and when the paperwork went back down to the city, the letterhead changed. So they changed the paperwork but kept the people's signatures. Nobody ever moved back over there. It's now, as you can see, Fresh Grocer, McDonald's, you know, all different things like that. So that's one way of taking away home ownership. The other way of taking away home ownership is the cost of living constantly goes up. But a lot of these jobs are not willing to pay a cost of living wage. You can't expect a person that makes $40,000, $50,000 to be able to afford a house that's $100,000, $200,000. You then become house poor because you're just literally paying to stay in that house. You know, a lot of people say, oh, well, Black and brown communities, they don't care about the environment. And as I was sharing with Cypress and Mr., what's your name? Mr. Shelton, it's not that we don't care. We do care. I know I'm dying. I know I'm slowly dying being in Grace Ferry, but at least let me have a roof over my head that I can slowly die under, you know? And I'm a renter, and I hate my block with a passion. I'll be quite honest with you. I hate my block with a passion. I have a landlord that doesn't really do too much, you know, but he went up on my rent. He didn't go up a whole lot, but I knew he had to go up on my rent. I mean, he didn't have to, but he did. But the reality for me is, even working, and I'm a school teacher, and I make okay money, I cannot afford anything over the rents that they want now, $2,000, $3,000. I can't afford it. I'm barely affording the $1,000 a month that I gotta pay because that's not including the utilities. I got 2 kids. I got a 13-year-old and a 1-year-old. You know, I gotta get back and forth. So nobody takes all of that into account. So when you think of the decreasing things for home ownership, just ownership here, it's like anything that we want to own or that we can own, they take it from you. The Philadelphia Land Bank won't even meet with communities. You know, like they will not meet with communities. And I know that firsthand when the women's revitalization, thankfully they got land in Grace Ferry, but they were looking for a long time to find land to build low-income housing. And when we requested that the land bank come and meet with us, they said no. You know, people had gardens you know, for years, they had gardens, like my cousin, she has a garden called the South Philly Peace Garden. That was a mess with that, because after it was given to her, then the city sold it to a developer. So they had to figure out a way to preserve it, and once the developer found it, thankfully she got hold of a nice developer. He liked what she was doing, so he was willing to actually do a land swap with the city. Otherwise, he could have said, no, I don't care, I'm gonna build here. You know, it's like, they need to figure out ways to help people on the lower end. And it's not, and I know the city will say, well, it's not us, the state will say it's not us. It's the federal government. When it comes to this AMIs and all of this, they really need to increase the poverty guidelines. And you may need to increase the poverty guidelines to say if you make $80,000, you're still poor. You know, because that's the reality that we're walking into. That if you are making $80,000 and you have a family, yeah, you're still poor. But also, it will help people with the different programs. Now, remember I said I used to be the NAT coordinator. There were different programs, the basic systems home repair program, all these different programs that the city had to help you fix your house. But you had to fall within a certain guideline. Now, if you're a retired elderly person and you got a pension coming in, that may knock you out of the box for that money as well. So the thing is, if you raise the guidelines, the income guidelines, you can help people, because let's say Miss Foy was bringing in a pension of $80,000 a year, right? And she fell on hard times real quickly for a moment. But here's the basic system home repairs program. She could get it. Now she could get things fixed in her home. But then guess what? She may not ever need it again, because she just needed it for that moment to help her. And you don't have programs like that that can help you for a moment. You know, it says, if I'm going to help you, you have to be almost destitute. I had some neighbors whose houses, when you went into their house, you could see clear outside. And I'll never forget, this one lady said, you know, this is my home. To the city, it's just another building. And if I take the help from the city, they're going to come in here and they're going to condemn my house, which they would have. And she said, but this is all I got. And you could see clear, you could see outside. But that is a reality of a lot of people in these neighborhoods, that they're living in these fears, like their house is falling down around them, but it's theirs. At the end of the day, it is theirs. You know, even if the bank is falling down, it's theirs. So how do we figure out a way to help them? You know, and we talk a lot about community benefits agreements. A community benefits agreement is only as good as the developer. You know, if the developer can say, yeah, I'll do it. And then once it comes time, they may even sign off on it. But once it comes time to really, okay, you do it, this is what you promised, and they say, I'm not gonna do that. Because once they start building, it's like, okay, I don't have to deal with this no more. You know, and a lot of times, most of these organizations, most of these residents don't have long money for the long game. You know, eminent domain is real. Eminent domain is still happening. Can you fight eminent domain? Yes, you can, but you gotta have the long money to fight that long game. And most of these developers have that long money to fight that long game. You know, so I agree. Everybody really needs to really start working together. And we all live in silos. Even though Philadelphia is a city of neighborhoods, we live in silos, you know, and I think everybody's really starting to realize everybody's dealing with the same thing, just at different levels. But now it's like, how does everybody come together, you know, and figure this out without, once they have a disagreement, to say, you know what, forget this, I'm not going to do it. Because I think that's a lot of times, that's what people in power are banking on, everybody to just really just start disagreeing on stuff. And in the long run, we're still hurt. One of the things that was promised to Grace Ferry years ago under the first plan, when they tore down Benson and Anthony Wayne, Grace Ferry was supposed to get another school in place of those two schools. They didn't do that. Then they made a new plan with the help of University of Penn students, in 1996, they made a new set of plans, and they were supposed to move everybody pretty much from the outside of Grace Ferry, move them more inward and make green spaces. That plan didn't happen. Now you have the Philly Imagine 2035 plan, which talks about green spaces, urban farming. However, the city is selling off every piece of land that they got. So how you gonna have the green spaces and the urban farming part of your plan? The other part of it is they never once came out Grace Ferry to ask Grace Ferry what we wanted. Never. Each of the meetings for Philly 2035 was done down near Broad Street. Not one time did they come in Grace Ferry to say, hey, Grace Ferry, what do you want? Because guess what? We know in a couple of years, we're going to push development over this way to y'all. So what do you want? You know? So, that's it.
Thank you so much. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Great. So let me just say this. I have a colleague at the Housing Initiative who's been doing research to understand who is buying parcels of land in Philadelphia. And one thing that she's starting to see, and this is like brand new research, she showed me a map on Thursday that she'd made, is that institutional buyers are coming in. And that means that people are buying houses and properties, and they're not people who, it's not just somebody's uncle who's buying an apartment building, it's not someone who's buying a house to live in. They're big investors, maybe out of state, maybe out of the country, right? Who's buying properties? And one of the hot spots we're seeing is right in this neighborhood. So I wanted to share that with all of you because I think it's right. And again, talking about right, like who has the money to stay and to wait, right? And these are people who have money to stay and to wait until property values go up, to flip the house, sort of whatever. And then the other thing I want to say is that, and that I think a lot about in my research, is it's sort of a wonky academic term, but it's called administrative burden. And it's a way of thinking about how hard it is to get benefits, right? And to get care. And I think, right, like, I had an experience where I had a workplace injury, and all my care was through workers' comp. And I didn't have other health insurance, and so that was how I was getting care. And that system is set up that there's just hurdle after hurdle after hurdle. And one of the problems with that is it's also run through a private contractor, right? And so it's a guaranteed benefit, but it's run so that someone makes money. And we we see that in housing too, right? And so administrative burden, right? It's the background check. It's the proof of income. It's sort of every single step that makes it hard to access and hard to organize. And I think it's such a powerful idea, right? Because it gives an answer of why is this so hard? It's so hard by design. It's not the fault of an individual, right? And then also it can make us start to imagine how programs could work. Yeah, I think at least for me, that's what it provides. Is it provides an imaginary space of what would it mean for someone to not have to prove that they need help, right? What would it mean to not have to prove that you deserve to have money to put food on the table? And so I think that is can be such. And then also, and I promise I'll stop. I just want to just acknowledge how hard organizing work is, how and how it comes out of relationships, and how important it is to stay in your neighborhood and to stay with your people so that you're able to organize and demand what people deserve, and just how thankful and honored I am to be in this space with all of you, and I'll just leave it there.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
John and Nancy, you'll be our last comment, and then we gotta wrap up and eat some food.
I wanted to, community benefit agreements, I just want to make some comments about that.
Yeah.
There are two things I want to just mention that I think that we ought to work on collectively. One is to do, we have to put it together very well, but it would be collectively raising money to buy land. That's the first thing. Doesn't have to be a land trust, so I'm not, there are issues and difficulties. Even though I'm doing a community land trust, I'm not telling you it's the end all and be all. It is not. There is no silver bullet. But that's one thing. Second thing is that when they come up with a community benefits agreement, you need a lawyer. Let me tell you why. I've studied community benefits agreements around the country. None of them have any teeth. So people promise you the world. When Walmart comes into a community, it comes in with a community benefits agreement. So they'll give you X. And that money that they say they're going to give you is the amount of money they're going to pay people who work in their store. So anyway, if you get, and this is where the institutions can help us out. Penn, whoever has a law school, there ought to be folks who say, there ought to be a bite. If you don't do it, we get money damages. Very simple. Now, are they going to agree to it? No. But at least you've said, then what's the point of a community benefits agreement if you don't do it? We have no muscle. So I would just urge that. And my wife must speak fast. She does it at home too.
That is so cute.
For you, but not for me.
I do want to say, and Cyprus is aware because we recently came from another summit or symposium. And from that symposium, the passion was as genuine as this. And what to do for next steps is always my thing. I can't take but so much of the horrors of it. What do we do next? From that, I designed organization, supposed to be just national, but it's gone international because there was a Canadian there who wanted to be part of it. It's called INSACA. It stands for International, National, State, and Community Alliance. We've taken names and email and phone numbers, not necessarily doing anything, rah-rah, carrying on, but in the event that there is something, for instance, the Asian community having this difficulty, INSACA shows up, whether we're Asian or not. INSACA represents, and I'm hoping that this becomes so large that INSACA is a name that is feared. All right. That's all I have to say. Yes. Yes. INSACA.
I'm really wishing that we had like another hour or two to spend here because I feel like we're just getting into it. We do need to keep moving, so we're gonna wrap up. I want to thank all of these incredible presenters for being here today and also just for the work that you're doing every day. Yeah, really an honor to be here with you. Can we give them? Also recognize that we didn't get a chance to take audience questions or also hear like audience and participant stories and reflections. I'm gonna leave my email just written down on like the table over there. It's just my personal email because I know that the Thrive emails are gonna be flooded after today, but you can also email a Thrive email if that's more comfortable. Just if you have any like reflections or ideas or questions from anyone, that can also be like a way that we connect people to each other, because I think we've heard a lot about the importance of relationships in this work. I think, Ms. Carroll, do you have anything that you want to add before we close out? Oh, sorry, your feet.
I just want to thank everyone for coming out today, especially my organization here. Well, I've been with Easter Service Workers since I was 24 years old. So I'm 70 now, and this is one of my organizations. Her name's Freda, and she's part of Easter Service Worker. And I just want to thank her and everyone else for coming out today and supporting us. Thank you.